it really boiled down to what is everybody out there going to think of me? What is my mom going to think of me? What is my dad going to think of me? What are my brothers and sisters going to think of me? What is she going to think of me if I can't go support the wedding?
Got you. And so that's why you went, is mainly because you're worried about everybody else.
Yes.
So even nowadays, today, if you felt like you were standing for you alone, would you have gone?
No.
Okay. Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
I felt like I wasn't being true to myself. And I find that in life, I see that a lot with people that they worry more about what they're going to look like to other people rather than being true to themselves. And I've gotten to a point in my life where it's more important to be true to myself than it is of what you're going to think of me.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's been a big thing in my life.
Gotcha. So did they have a big wedding, like a big ceremony, something like that?
No, they went through what we call the endowment house, just like we did.
Just like,
So
okay.
that was an interesting little tidbit. We went to the wedding. I really struggled getting through the wedding because I was going against my every being to be there, you know.
Mhm.
So here I am sitting there, I'm crying because I'm gonna take, so when you get married in those situations and you're giving another wife to your husband, you actually are putting her hand into his. So I get up to the altar and I have to take her hand and say, I give you to my husband. And it was all I could do to do that. And I was crying pretty hard through that situation. But I did it. I got through it.
Yeah.
And I got all through the whole ceremony and I started to walk away. And I had one of my mothers, she's very, very sweet. I love her, but she brought me a gift, a wedding gift for me on the
Their
other
wedding.
wife's wedding. So she brought me this beautiful gift and she says, honey, I know that this is really hard for you.
Hmm.
And she goes, but you're doing the right thing. And I want to tell you a story. You see, when you take on a new wife, it's like getting a new pair of shoes. And she's the new shoe. And she's beautiful and shiny, but she's pinches and she's not very comfortable. And you're like the old shoe where you're nice and comfortable. And so, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm not even an old shoe yet. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it didn't feel very good, you know? So she goes on to describe that I need to be a comfortable old shoe for my husband. And I'm like, I'm not that old of a shoe. And I like nice, shiny shoes. And I would rather wear a pinchy, shiny shoe. This is not helping me.
That's funny.
So it was kind of a little funny thing as I walk out going, that didn't help. Nope.
Hilarious.
But
I mean, the only like situation that I have that's similar to that was that cousin wedding that you brought me to, where you had like a nephew that was getting married to his second wife. And I didn't, that was the first time that I realized how big of a deal it was. Not necessarily like the first wife, sure. But after that, you're entering polygamy dome.
mhm.
And so him getting married to that second wife was a huge spiritual big deal. Both families were sobbing. I don't know if it was because some of them were sad, some of them were happy, but it seemed like it was just an overabundance of joy and spirituality in that place. But that doesn't sound like it was that for you.
No, um, maybe I was just too emotional, but you know, who knows? It was what I went through.
Yeah.
Um, in the, in a lot of ways, it brought me to where I am now.
Yeah.
And so it is what it is, but it's not an easy process to bring in another wife. And it's something that men need to learn how to handle very, very carefully. I was lucky that my husband was very caring and loving, because you have to understand, when a husband brings in another wife, it can destroy his family. It can rip them to shreds.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
anyway,
So, did she ever move in with you guys?
no, not for a while. Well, she did in the long run, she did. After she was married, then we ended up all getting in the car, and we went out to dinner with her and the people that she invited, her mom and stuff like that. And it just felt like everything was circled around her rather than around us. And when I got married, it was all about us,
Hmm.
so that was quite a difference. And so when we all drove off, we got in the car, and I just thought to myself, this is not going to work. This is not, this is not what I signed up for, to be this separated thing. And it became a real challenge from then on in my marriage. That threw a real monkey wrench in there, I guess you could call it. So there became some trust issues that I had to work through.
Between you
And
and
I feel like it's because I betrayed myself rather than being who I needed to be for myself. I
yeah.
feel like we need to be really careful in life that we watch each situation and we be honest with ourselves,
Hmm.
and not do those things that are going against yourself when you feel strongly about something, even if it's uncomfortable and other people judge you for it.
Yeah. Well, and like you covered in the last few episodes, it's you chose to do this for you, and you wanted to do it your way, and you wanted to be in a family that was very connected
Mhm.
and all about each other. And
Right.
so you didn't even, you like got that for a moment, but then it was almost immediately you were thrown, I would say, your own uh, trial, your own journey to experience and go through, where now you have to experience quite the opposite of what you were looking for.
Yeah.
Now she's married into the family, wife number 5, right?
Mhm.
Um, when did you have your first kid in the family?
Let's see. The first wife had 8 kids, the second wife had 6 kids, and the third wife had one. And I found out that I was pregnant. I probably told everybody I was pregnant soon after she was married. So
Okay,
that's when I found out I was pregnant.
gotcha.
And that was an exciting time for me, because I wasn't feeling very well. It took me a minute to figure out that I was even pregnant. And everybody had respect to wait until, but I told my husband first that I was pregnant, and he was all excited. And I went out and told the other girls, and they were all excited. So we just had a big celebration. And then my husband encouraged me to call um, the fifth wife.
Okay.
And so I didn't really want to call her because we didn't have much of a relationship. So I hesitated to call, but I thought I should. So I picked up the phone and called to tell her, and it was really awkward for me. I don't think she knew how to respond, and I took that as her being unaccepting of the fact that I was pregnant. I don't remember any type of congratulations or anything. It just felt kind of like, okay, thanks for telling me, kind of thing, but not really any type of celebration. So when I got off the phone, I felt really quite hurt. And, your dad just gave me a big hug and said, "This is really cool. You know, this is a celebration for all of us." And the four girls and him all got together and we just gave each other, we always did this circle hug with our heads in the middle and just said, "This is a time to celebrate. We have a new child coming in." And it was my first, and it was a big deal, you know, for me and for them. They were all way excited.
Yeah,
So,
it's pretty cool. That so, and I'll probably keep bringing this up. I love the dynamic that you guys all have and how close you guys all are. Because I think that in itself is what creates a lot of that bond and trust that you guys all have with each other. I just
mhm.
a lot of times I'll admire it just because I think it's beautiful. That's all.
Yeah, it was really fun, and that's what got us through a lot of hard times. If I was struggling with something, I could always lean on one of the other girls, or they could lean on me at the same time. So we did have that close connection, and as together we watched out for each other's kids and all of that. We got along great.
Yeah.
At Christmas time, it was always a big deal that we celebrated Christmas together, and we made sure every kid was had the perfect Christmas. The first wife
Yeah.
was always amazing at making sure, she was the one we all leaned on, because she was like, Christmas has got to be perfect. And that's when I learned how to really love Christmas. So,
That's cool. Um, so I know that all growing up, you were pretty much just like the community babysitter. You've pretty much always been looking after kids. You've always been, in a sense, a motherly type. But I'm sure it was a special transition when your first one was born, that this one's actually your first child. This is your child instead of just children you've been taking care of this whole time.
oh yeah, that was a big dream of mine. And it was totally different to realize the difference of having your own child and somebody else's. You fall in love more than you would ever know that you could fall in love. You know, that is the biggest connection that you can ever experience for me in my life. And I've talked to other women who have expressed the same thing about bringing a child into the world is bigger than you can possibly imagine. There's no describing it, to stare at that child that you created.
Yeah, it's cool. And so I know that there was a point where wife number two had to move out of the house into her own house.
Yeah.
How did that shake up the family dynamic for you when she had?
Um, we were all really close, so it was hard. She had to move out because of her ex-husband, so she moved into another place, but we still stayed connected. We would go over and babysit her children while she ended up going to work with her husband in his office to try to keep as much money into the family as we could.
Hmm.
That in itself brings another layer of challenges in life. So
Hmm.
we would go over there and babysit her kids and take care of them. We always still got together um, on every occasion, Sundays and stuff like that. So we still kept friendships. That was important to us, to make sure that we were always friends, because you're going to run into challenges in any relationship where change causes a stir in emotions and everything, in any type of change.
Yeah.
That can be from, somebody moving out to somebody moving in to in-laws coming over to friends coming over. Whatever, any type of big change in life causes stress in a family. So we had to learn how to adapt to those stresses and to be able to make sure that the core values that we had, that we were going to be friends, were always there.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal to make sure that we had that.
Yeah, gotcha. Um, was there ever any jealousies of the fact that you would go watch wife number two's kids and then wife number two and dad would go off and work together?
Oh yeah, there was lots of jealousies with that. It was challenging because, you had your time with them to to with your husband, and then to watch him go off to work and travel for however long to get to the office and spend all that extra time with that wife, and then all the time back. And there was several situations where that became challenging.
Yeah.
um, Especially in my case, I did not have a gift of gab. I was very quiet and didn't express my own feelings very well.
Mhm.
And some people have a gift of gab, and she had a gift of gab, and she could keep people's attention, and everybody wanted to be around her because she was interesting to talk to, and I was not so interesting. So that caused a challenge for me to be able to not feel like that he would rather be around her than me. And so that was really challenging for me to be able to let go of those jealousies and to realize that I needed to build my own relationship instead of comparing my relationship with somebody else.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yep.
Was there so I think what probably creates the most unity is when you guys all have the opportunity to really just be together and bond together. Was there ever a moment where everybody was in the same house, including wife number five, where you guys all came together in one space and you lived together? I know
Uh, Not there was enough kids at that point that we we ended up buying another home in Mapleton, and we enjoyed that home together. But the first wife had enough kids that she actually stayed in Linden, but we still did a lot together. She would bring her kids to the other house, and we would go down there. We made sure that we went out together anytime that your dad was going out with one person. We would go out together. It was kind of
Mhm.
like he's going out, so were we. It was really important for us to keep that connection. A lot of times we would just go with a couple of us and go somewhere. We enjoyed shopping together. We enjoyed spending time with each other. I mean, we really did become the best of friends
Yeah.
to make sure that that bond stayed close. There were times when I was struggling with the first wife, and I would go to her and say, "Hey, can we talk?" And she was always really good about saying, "Yeah, let's talk, but let's remember that we love each other first." So that was became a constant thing, no matter what problems we have together, or where we got our feelings hurt, or whatever the situation is, that we remembered that we were friends first, and then we can work through our struggles and our problems. This was kind of a basis of where we came from. So it was harder for me to let go of hurt than I feel like for some of the others. Maybe
Mhm.
that's just in my own perspective, but I struggled to let go of hurts and, not take it personally. But I did have to learn how to let that go. And the more of a relationship I built with each person, the less I was able to hang on to the story that I didn't matter. And this
Yeah.
was a big step in my life to start realizing that I mattered, and they mattered, and somebody wasn't out doing things to hurt me, and I would never just go out and do something to hurt somebody else. So why would I think that they would go out and try to hurt me?
Yeah.
So the more you start to realize life isn't about you, life isn't done to you, life happens, and you get to decide how you react to it. So that was the lesson that I began to learn.
I think that's a great spot for us to leave off for this week. So next week when we come to pick up, I want to dive a little bit more into that time in your guys' life when you bought the Mapleton house and you all moved into that house. Because to me, that sounds like it was probably one of the times where all the wives were in living situations the closest. So that was probably the moment where you guys were all the most unified as a family in a sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Well, as always, you look beautiful, and I appreciate you always being so vulnerable and open with us all. For everybody that's joining in, we appreciate you guys watching. Give it a share, give it a like. Tune in next week for what's next. Thank you.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Love you, Mom.